Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So we're going to do a little bit of driver testing in this particular video. We're going to take a look at loft on a driver. How much influence does loft make to your launch of the golf ball, also the spin of the golf ball, and maybe some distance as well, plus maybe a little bit of accuracy possibly on the back of that. So we've got the Ping G425, we've got three heads. I've got a 9 degree, a 10.5 and also a 12 degree. I'm going to use exactly the same shaft. We're going to hit a batch of shots with each one and just see exactly what change of loft actually alters to that ball flight. Okay, so driver loft. Just before we start, post in the comment section down below what loft are you using in your driver, and also why are you using it? Was that through a custom fit, or was that just through your own maybe trial and error, or have you just sort of gone with what sort of tends to be like a basic 10.5 degree? If you're going to pick a driver without much knowledge, probably 10.5 is the one to go for. So yeah, post comments down below, let me know your thoughts, how you've gone through this process. But we're going to start off with a 9 degree, say G425. I'm going to keep the head set up exactly the same shaft for each of this test. We're going to hit a few on track, man. Okay, so there's a good solid opening strike. Just a tiny bit up that left hand side. Felt pretty good. Fraction low. 112 club, 162 ball, carrying out at 278. So sometimes we choose loft maybe more for the type of golf course we're playing at. You know, if you're playing a windy course, sometimes see a lot of golfers just always wanting to go into that low loft to keep that ball flight down. Obviously, you know, can play dividends in that type of arena, but then also you've got to think of how maybe efficient it is in terms of getting that right launch for your particular speed, your particular strike pattern, and also the spin that you're creating on the golf ball. We'd always want to try and maximize a little bit of distance with the driver, as well as obviously take into account accuracy. So that was a good strike. That was a better strike, a little bit higher up that club face. That's launched, looked to be a little bit higher. So you see that 12 degree launch. Nice neutral ball flight. So we're going to carry on hitting a few more shots with this 9 degree. Okay, so there's 5 shots hit with that 9 degree head. Typically see my strike just a little bit low. It's always my miss, me personally, but again, we'll track that against each one of these. But that's the 9 degree. It's typical loft that I would probably personally play with my sort of speed. But let's jump into the 10.5. We'll have another little go. Right, so switched the head over. So still G425 max, weight, same position, everything like that. Now 10.5 head, exact same shaft. We're playing with them. Just for anybody out there who's wondering what I'm actually got in here, I've got the tensile orange AV in a 65 in an X. Okay, so same process. Let's hit some shots. 10.5. Definitely visually now see a little bit more of that club face, as you'd expect. That little bit more loft. Okay, yeah, again, just pulled that a fraction, but that's definitely flown a bit higher. Seems to be hanging in that air a little bit longer. That'd be interesting to look at things like distance. Again, very similar sort of strike point for me. And this is where I think it's really important to get on a launch mode like TrackMan, you know, to sort of look at how you deliver that golf club to that golf ball. You know, a lot of golfers will deliver it in different ways. Some hit more down on it. Typically then would deliver a little bit less sort of dynamic lofted impact, so then would sort of want to be in a little bit more static loft, so possibly a higher lofted driver. Some golfers hit very up on the golf ball, so if that's the case, then generally they present more dynamic loft, so then they can actually go lower, sometimes even sort of an 8 degree driver head, because they obviously create a lot of loft through impact. So again, it's all around your delivery. That's where for me you've got to get measured, test these in your delivery. Yeah, same again. Very consistent on the flight with that. Tiny bit up that left side, but all three have been very, very sort of consistent. Okay, and there's 5 shots with the 10.5. So for me, noticeably a bit higher on that ball flight. You know, things will maybe concern me a little bit more there. Now, for me personally, is if I'm playing on a windy golf course, to turn into the wind and seeing that flight sort of hang in the air that little bit longer can be a little bit more concerning. Maybe just see, like for instance, that last one, they see the spin rate, good strike there, but spin's getting a little bit higher now. So ultimately, the biggest influence of spin is obviously more loft is more spin, isn't it? So again, we've got to sort of weigh that into the equation also. But let's jump into the 12-degree head to finish off on. So again, G425 max head, weight the same, now 12-degree, exact same shaft again. So again, visuals are different. We're seeing much more of the club face, so it looks to be a lot more loft on there. That sometimes can provide golfers with a little bit of confidence. Sometimes we sort of see maybe a little bit more loft, it makes it a tiny bit harder to tilt the spin axis of the golf ball. So possibly maybe a little bit more accuracy here maybe, but we'll soon see. But let's hit some with this 12-degree. Okay, so that was definitely a bit more bottom, but that has actually got into the air quite a bit. That spin's probably going to be high on that with that bit more loft. Low strike, yeah, see 3,700. That's a combination of that loft and also then that strike location. Curvature-wise was very straight. See, that's 7 feet right of the curvature, so not a lot of curvature on that, which is good. So maybe as I've gone up in loft there with that 10.5 and also this 12, they see that little pull shot just creeping into it, so definitely as we increase a little bit of loft, we see a little bit more, well, me personally, that face just starting to close a little bit more. Okay, much higher. So 5 shots hit with that 12-degree head. Again, a little bit up that left side, but quite straight on the curvature of the flight. Be very interested to see. We know spin's gone up here, but let's just check a few numbers out, a little bit more detail. See what's really changed in the performance of that flight of that golf ball with those 3 different lofts. Okay, so let's have a look at the dispersion rings to start with. So obviously this is for me, isn't it, and my speed and my delivery and everything like that. And obviously my delivery can be quite different from the next person to the next person again. So obviously a pinch of salt with this, you've got to dial this in with a good fitter on a launch monitor to really dial it in as per your delivery, your dynamic loft, as we mentioned, also your speed as well. So if we look at the dispersion rings, so the white one being the 9-degree driver head, just that one up that left, others were a little bit more quite neutral there. And then looking into the yellow was the 10.5, so a couple of neutral ones and a couple of 3 sort of pull ones up the left hand side. And as I went into more loft, you can see I've dropped off a little bit of distance there now, a little bit higher launch, higher spin, just kills my, this is carry dots here, just obviously kills that carry a little bit more for me. But again, more of that left side biased. So as I've gone up more loft, you can see my bias of my left to right. This has gone more up that left hand side. Okay, and we'll just have a look at the strikes here, because obviously, as I mentioned before, strikes do make a big difference to how that ball launches. Typically low in the face strikes will launch that ball a tiny bit lower than it would do if we hit it higher in the club face. Now, me personally, my miss is always a touch low in the club face. It always sort of has been, really. Something I probably need to try and work on a little bit more. But look, this is the heat patch on the 5 shots I've hit with a 9-degree driver. So you can see quite central, touch low in that club face. But you'll see there's very consistent between all these. So moving to the 10.5, again, very similar pattern there. Identical really, isn't it? And then moving into the 12-degree head, you see just a tiny bit lower again, but very similar. So the patterns haven't massively changed between those 3 lofts. And then if we have a look at the numbers between the 3 lofts here, so we've got the 10.5, so you can see club head speed, pretty identical there, just moved it a fraction quicker, 10.5 to 12, but yeah, pretty much identical there. Ball speed sort of matching up, maybe a little bit slower with a 12-degree. Again, you've got to think there's more loft there. The ball speed won't be quite as fast off the club face as it would do with a less lofted golf club. Launch, 11.6, 11.5 and then 12.5, so not a difference between the 9 and the 10.5. Again, possibly that 10.5 was starting a little bit more up that left side in comparison to that 9 degrees, so possibly that's launched that a little bit lower because of that slight left bias, but you can see a big difference of the spin. So 2745 going up to 3221 and then moving into 3780. So noticeable difference of spin. You know, the launch has gone up with that 12 degrees you'd expect. The spin's gone up, so then that really has an effect on that carry number. So you see 275 as average, carry 300 total, 275 295, and then 264 to 279. So a total of 20 yards lost on total distance and a good 10 yards lost on actual carry distance. But then it affects your land angle now, doesn't it? So you're going from 35-degree land angle as it comes into obviously the fairway, or the rougher, more in my case, and then going to 44 degrees with the 12 degree, and obviously then you can see the massive difference of that height. But again, going back to curvature, we can see this is an average, obviously, but we look at my biggest curvature there with the 9 degree was 99 feet to the right, so left to right spin there, and the lowest being sort of 35. Going into the 10.5 degree head, you can see my biggest was 52 and my smallest was 8, so better on my side spin, giving me a lower average of 17. And then they see the 12 degree, I'm going from 22 left to a 3 right, so a big difference and much more straight to that 12 degree. Right, okay everybody, so there we go. There's a little test. It's always quite an interesting one, and sometimes a bit of an eye-opener for many golfers out there. Possibly hasn't been down that fitting sort of scenario, you know, being on a launch monitor with a fitter and sort of just testing different heads. As I mentioned, it's really important to dial that loft in for you and your personal delivery. Obviously, don't go buying off my video here, but hopefully this will prompt you to maybe go and find your local fitter and, you know, just try some different heads, get measurements, see what your tenses are on your strike pattern on the club face, you know, how you deliver the club to the golf ball, the angle of attack, the dynamic loft, all those sort of things, and tying that in with the shot shape. Obviously, we've got different shaft options, lengths, different neck settings, weight positions, which can all sort of dial it in. Okay, appreciate you watching the video. Hope you found that a little bit useful there. If you have, I appreciate you hitting that like button. Do share the video around, and more importantly, do subscribe if you haven't done so already. Very much appreciate your support, and hopefully we'll catch up with you all very soon.